cricket already being here was a good place to lay my foundation. So I talked to my mom and dad and just made the jump. So that's where everything started. And now
Fantastic, man.
I guess it's my third year of my degree. Uh, on last year, I coached cricket in a local club called Yoldham Park Cricket Club for the last couple of years, just coaching junior cricket as well as playing for the main team. And I guess somewhat around last year when I had to pick my first get into my placements. We had a lot of placements going on for our unit, and I saw the Geelong Cats opportunity in the AFL, and I applied for it. Did the interview and got into the sports science system. Started off with doing a lot of the GPS work, looking at the training loads, tracking, doing live tracking, managing the equipment, and all of that stuff, as well as seeing what goes on behind the scenes in a high performance environment. And yeah, just been doing that for a while now. It's been more than 6 months, started last November there. But I guess starting from there really opened my eyes to the world of high performance, being getting that first-hand experience. And I was like, oh, I want to do something like this at a local level as well, get into the midst of things, not just sit back as well. So the first one of those first things that I did was I saw strength and conditioning opportunity at Doncaster East Football Club, which is pretty close by to where I live. I was like, yeah, I hopped onto that and talked to Peter Green. He's a high performance manager there. So over there, I started off with just running warm ups, helping out with the rehab, and as well as running conditioning drills as well. And sort of as the season went on, sort of more transited to a role of doing game day stuff as well, like helping with the having the iPad on and managing the game day rotations, as well as running the game day warm ups and bit of other stuff as well. And I think one of the interesting things I found there was I started to make GPS reports of game days and how to help coaches interpret that. I think even in my degree, that was not something that I learned yet so far. I think I'm only in the stage of yet coming to do that, but just already started to do that, which I felt like I got a head start into it, as well as getting help in how to just not just graphs, but also how to interpret that number and what that looks for a player across time periods as well. So that's one of the local roles that I did. After that, again, I was like, oh, I got to upskill myself and not just stick to one or two sports. I want to spread myself out there. So I was like, what's another sport that I could look at? So through my contacts in the cricket club, which is in Parkville, I got one of the soccer club's contact. I got Carlo, he's president of Brunswick Zebra Soccer Club in Brunswick. I called up, gave a call to the president and said, hey, this is what I do. I'm a third year Bachelor of Exercise in Sports Science, and I do this at Geelong, this is another place. I'm looking to help you guys and see if there's any opportunities available within the club. And the first thing he said was, yeah, the women's program in the club has not been doing really well. They've had heaps of ACL and ankle injuries over the last couple of years. They've hired physios just to help with the rehab stage. They send them off to a clinic, but hasn't helped more so in the preventative stage. So I decided, yeah, I'll come in. So I went to them, had a meeting, and with your help as well, Jack, got a whole presentation going on what's the benefit of running a performance program for the club, especially with the women's program, and presented to the committee of the board. They agreed it's a good idea, as well as tried to get them to buy a couple units. I guess we've got like 5 GPS units going on around at the moment, trying to see get what numbers are happening at the local level of soccer, especially at state league ones, twos, threes, and fours. It's not very high quality, but it's still semi-amateur for them as well. So yeah, over there, I guess they had nothing, no gym program, no conditioning, anything. So start off, it's a very feel like working in that sector was pretty hard at the start because they play games on a Sunday, but they have to train on a Monday as well and on a Wednesday,
Mm.
which is very contrary to what evidence suggests. You shouldn't be training right after a game or just 24 hours after a game, which that's the problem with women's sport. A lot of the time, we don't have the enough facilities or enough people to be able to manage the team. So because they were training on a Monday, sort of had to change the structure of how they train on a Monday. So I bought in an idea with a plan to no high speed running at all on a Monday, no sprinting, no that sort of movement. implemented sort of like an isometric strength training system, basic body weight movements, stage 2 movements, because just to strengthen their ligaments and ankles and joints. But surprisingly enough, I found that they found that itself very pretty hard. If you give that to an advanced athlete, that would be their warm up of rehab. But the girls found this hard, so that was pretty good that they were adapting. So put that into place for on a Monday, and just followed by a bit of skills as well as especially targeting the ankle mobility as well as change of direction, agility, and all that sort of stuff. And Wednesday became the main session where I talked to the coaches. It was good. I found a good coach who agreed with me on these aspects because he had similar experience in athletic field as well. Wednesday became our main session where instead of what normally a lot of people get at a footy club where they just get a 15 minutes of warm up time with the players and then they're off with the coaches to do the drills. The coach at my his name is George. He agreed to give me 30 minutes of time of a 1.5 hour training session to help improve the girls with their athleticism, fitness, and everything, which is pretty good. So usually running the 15-minute warm-up was helpful, but then I got another 15 minutes over there to engage them in doing a lot of agility work, coordination, change of direction in order to make them fitter in those moments, especially since those are the moments that cause ACL injuries and ankle problems. And as well as, even though soccer is not much of a physical sport, they were not physical. There were absolutely no physicality at training at all. Whereas when they went in the game, they would have heaps of physicality and they would get pushed over, then they would roll their ankle, then they would get their knee. So it was also a lot of contact. So I try to increase the amount of contact they had in training as well as they improve their aerobic conditioning as well. So brought in about a conditioning system, sort of very light work. They found it really hard to just be running for 3 minutes even. But then we've sort of progressed from fartlek to sprints to now, then pretty much this week we had two conditioning sessions run in the same session. So it's really good to see the progression, and especially when I get feedback from the girls being like, touch wood, we haven't had any ACL or ankle injuries this year so far, and we've had 25 people turn up to training in the middle of the season, which is pretty good for me to look at. So yeah, that's been pretty good, and everyone's liking that. So since I started doing that as well, I guess at my cricket, an opportunity came up at my cricket club. There, we had one of our head coaches leave around last year. He was from West Indies. He was a Test cricketer, and they want to fill the role of the junior head coach. So one of the presidents of the club, this is my really good mentor, Paul Sinclair. He asked me if I wanted to take up on the role of the junior head coach, and yeah, I went through. I was like, definitely, and went through the processes of the interview, cover letter, all of that. Got in with it, and yeah, as well as because he knew of my experience and me personally as well, my background in sports science, the club also always had like junior cricketers, 15, 16-year-olds who play a lot of footy and cricket as well, bunch of sports, and then they end up with stress fractures of their toe, their back throughout the season. They end up with injuries at some point or the other, and prohibiting them from being able to play cricket because cricket compared to footy was much more of a low impact sport. So he asked me to do sort of write up program for this coming season to see if we can just basic sort of conditioning program to increase the intensity in preseason and see how the season goes, as well as still an idea in the building that we're going to try and use one of the gyms nearby, Brunswick Baths gym nearby, to run a clinic where we get athletes to come in. We assist them if we can and just give them a basic program. We send it to them. If they want to follow through it throughout the year, good. And then we conduct a mid-year assessment to see how they're doing, as well as especially with the junior athletes. So that's something that I'm looking forward to doing as the years, as time's coming. Yeah. So when I was looking at all of these sort of roles that I already had going on, I saw that I was getting a lot of experience on the field. I had a lot of experience running warm-ups, doing conditioning, trying to plan that out. And even during sessions, I'd have players who'd be like, they roll their ankle on the weekend, not pretty badly. They might have seen a physio. Then they would come to me. They're like, I don't want to see the physio again. I really do not have the money for it or something like that. They'd have some other circumstance that like, can you help me out? Even though it was not in my particular scope, I'd be like, okay, let's slowly get there. So I would help them with bands, just getting their ankle mobility, getting them doing calf raises, sort of like that. So sort of build a bit more experience in that stages of rehab and progressing them
Mhm.
through. I think one of those, I had one experience this season where one of the girls, she did a pretty bad grade 2 sprain, and you could see there was blood and there was a lot of clotting and there was big swelling as well. And she wanted to really play before she went because she's going traveling away to Europe. So I was able to help her with her late stage of rehab, getting her ankle strong, not just for inversion, eversion, and even sprinting as well. And I found that when they're doing rehab, it's a good opportunity to help them improve other aspects which are not injured, but which might not be usually trained. So let's say they're lacking, even if their ankles fine, they might be lacking a bit of hip flexor strength or something, which you don't get time to train in usually. Just use a couple of resistance bands, train that at training, and then they go back and they're like, oh, my kicking's much better now. So tiny things like that. So I saw that helped on the field. So I was like, oh, I wonder what I could do if I was able to have access to a gym or get some more experience in the gym. So that's where I found upon was looking at things where I could get opportunities in the gym place, and I came across the Athletes Authority internship, rehab and performance intern. So I applied for that, and I knew it was a private sector, and it's a lot of gym coaching. So I was like keen to get into it. So I applied, got the interview. I was interviewed by Nathan Williams. Shout out to him, and yeah, got in. And now we just literally just started last week. So it's coaching on the gym, learning from the previous interns as well as the experienced coaches over there, and try and build my experience on the gym. So I guess like try to complete an all-round profile of myself before I graduate and get ready to go and work in the industry. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's well, one of the reasons why I was so eager to get you on, Mukti, is just your dedication to your craft. I think it's inspiring for not only coaches, but also just for anyone that wants to maximize their passion and I guess create a their dreams a reality, mate. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's some good gems there for perhaps those that are studying that aren't building up their experiences on areas that you can maximize your 3-4 years while you're doing your bachelor's and not just wait. Like we're talking a little bit off air, wait to do your experience after your degree, but actually start as early as possible. So the fact that you're probably getting about 4 years experience in just this 1 year
Yeah.
is fantastic, mate. Take us back to the opportunity you had with the Geelong Cats. For those listening in that are looking to get an internship at a pro club, what would be some of your tips? How did you manage to get that
Uh,
opportunity?
I guess, yeah, biggest thing, I didn't know a thing about AFL before that opportunity came upon. I had a friend who did a performance analysis intern at Geelong. Yeah, his name is Joshua. And I was talking to him. I was like, wow, I've been to footy games before. This looks pretty cool. And I was like, when the time comes around next year, I will probably try to get into footy. The thing is, I knew nothing. So when I applied for it, I remember writing the cover letter. I was like, oh, how am I going to make myself stand out? And I think one of the things that drew me was like, yeah, be honest. And I was honest about the fact that, yeah, I didn't know a thing about footy. I play cricket and I coach bucket load of cricket, and I try to push my strength in that direction, but try to show my adaptability in because I moved countries and adapting to situations. So try to push for that. And I guess that worked. And I got into the interview with Taylor Bork, the head sports scientist there, as well as Daniel Jones, the one of the head SNCs over there as well. So the interview is pretty good. Went through with the questions, pretty much the usual, the background and stuff. And I guess again, the thing was like you don't know much about footy, so how are you going to work through that? So I guess the thing was like I was open to it, and I said I would adapt to situations. I'm really eager and stuff like that. I guess that just stood out, and the fact that playing cricket, I feel like especially in a country like Australia, cricket and footy just go hand in hand with the off season and in season. So I felt like they
Mhm.
also probably saw that same sort of adaptability would just come into footy as well, and I got the role. So that's how that happened, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Well said, mate. That's I think you can't go wrong with being open and honest, and they would have seen that in the interview. But I think displaying that in your cover letter, yeah, is a good strategy rather than trying to be something that you're not. You mentioned Daniel Jones and Taylor, who also been some strong influences or mentors, if you like, that have helped sort of
Yeah,
shaped your coaching so far?
yeah. So far, I guess like especially Taylor Vaughan, Daniel Jones. Yeah, I talk to them heaps at Geelong whenever I get the chance. It's a very busy AFL environment, as you would know, Jack, and it's really hard to get their time. So I guess like nowadays, whenever I go in on their region days, which is one of their slower days where they're just walking through each players on things, and they've got a bit of time. I found a bit of time to chat to DJ personally. Had a cup of coffee with him. So asked him about his experiences. Like he's worked in the NBA and he's gotten over here, and he's also pretty young. So I think he was able to relate to where I am in that stage of career sort of sense. I guess like yeah, and he gave me advice as like, try to be a jack of all trades when you start, have your eggs in multiple baskets, learn how to work in multiple different sports. Don't just lean on just strength and power, learn how to rehab, learn how to do conditioning, learn how to teach someone how to sprint. So have all of that spread out. And then once you get to a stage, once you get older, you get to a stage of career where, yeah, okay, now I know this is actually what I really like. Then you hone in on that one, and your previous years of experience of all the other things sort of help you guide through that as well. So it sort of makes you knowledgeable in most fields. So I guess that advice been really helpful. And it was also like, yeah, you got to be crazy about it. If you like anything in life, if you want something and if you have a passion for it, you just have to be crazy about the science behind it and about wanting it as well. So it was a pretty big influence that, as well as I talked to Ben Serple is the other SNC there, and it was interesting because he's had a different career path as well. He went through he's done a lot of research and he's an SNC, which I haven't seen many people do. So it's really interesting to see how the research side of things would impact how the season progresses and how they would program and do things as well. So that was also another person that I leaned upon for advice. Also, whenever I get the time, Scott Murphy is pretty busy over there, but when I get the time, chat to him about what are they doing at training, what sort of stuff's going on, what are the goals and things like that. And just I feel like the most important thing is like, especially in busy environments and when you're an intern, the most you can do is you don't want to take away the time. You just have to learn to be observant and be like a sponge that where you just absorb things. You sort of just learn how environments work, who does what, and what could you learn from that without even just being able to ask. Sometimes you just pick it up. And I feel like just being there has literally opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I guess that's been a big experience, as well as if you're talking about other mentees, yeah, my cricket club's president, Paul Sinclair, has been a big, huge help. I didn't know anything about Australian sport, anything in general when I first came here. So he just sort of showed me the grounds of how cricket worked, worked with that. Then he pushed me on to the other soccer clubs as well. And yeah, whenever I'm in a tough spot of thinking about making some decisions, I also lean on him. And of late, as you of course as well, Jack, like recently, when I'm going more strength and conditioning and sports science specific, again, I needed advice that I could get quickly or, in a week's time. So I was like, yeah, that's why I found your academy. I was like, that's really good for someone like me, especially to get some really good advice and what to do with your career, because most of the time you don't know what's going on. And I think also what a lot of students miss as well is like your lecturers are a good way to network and communicate with people. And of reason, one of my biomechanics lecturers, Sophie, chatted to her about how her career path was and how she landed up in research after she did a master of sports science, where most people after doing a master's, they just end to go and work because that's otherwise they would have done an honors. So that was also interesting chat with her, helping her out with some of her research as well, ankle injuries and in AFL. So she's also been a good influence in the academic side of things, trying to find my base as well. Yeah, there's some of the current mentors. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, massive, mate. I think there's some great tips there for sports science and conditioning coaches. The one that DJ mentioned, clearly you're actioning that, the generalist approach. I mean, just looking over the year that you've had, like you said, you need to be able to see an elite environment. If you don't see it, I think it's really hard to visualize what's relevant, what's not. So you're getting that the Geelong Cats. You're seeing all the different roles there, how the sports science is working with the strengthening power and obviously the high performance with and how it all fits together. But then you're able to put in programs in place at Doncaster, investing in GPS and helping rehab, obviously, with the soccer club and developing athlete development with the cricket club. So I think you've pretty much got all that development from all the different opportunities that you've created yourself, which is fantastic, and is just the ultimately the best way to go to, like you said, you probably do need to be a bit crazy. I agree with that, because it is pretty cutthroat. It's competitive, and there's a lot of good people out there trying to go for the same full-time roles. So you probably need to do what others aren't willing to do, I think, to get that opportunity made. And clearly you are. So there's some learning. There's learning there for those that are perhaps maybe frustrated they're not getting the opportunities that they want, whether it be an internship. I mean, even going in again and getting the Athletes Authority and accelerating your coaching experience and one-on-one rehab experience there as well is another opportunity that you've taken on. So that's fantastic, mate. Yeah, eager to. You mentioned the academy. You've been one of our most active coaches in the academy. I know you've gone through the scorecard, which actually those that aren't in our academy have access to. So that spreadsheet is live. I'll make sure to add the link to download that spreadsheet. Essentially, it's a bit of an audit to see how you stack up against those that have got full-time opportunities. Some of the coaches that Mooksy's working with filled out a questionnaire that I sent out earlier in the year just to get a bit of an indication on what it took to get to your first full-time opportunity. And they're not just people in AFL, but different sports. And then I put that information together and just look for some trends and then put a spreadsheet together, a bit of a point system that Mooksy's worked through. We talked a little bit off air, mate, but what was some of the learnings that you got from going through that scorecard that you think could benefit strength and conditioning coaches?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I feel like, especially since you got that data from a lot of different people and a lot of high performance managers and people who already gone through that stage, you sort of build upon things like, yeah, getting your degree, getting your ASCA, programming a strength and power program for a 12-week period, stuff like that. So I found it as to be a very good checklist for someone like me to especially tick off. Like, you have these goals in your head, like, yeah, this is what I need to do to get to the pro level. Now that there's actual people who, yeah, they've gone through that and they've done it, and there's it's just written out in front of you, like, yeah, these are sort of the things that you usually do and you usually get through to your career when you get to that stage. So, and especially the good thing is, like, I saw the stage that you got season 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're progressing through your career, not just when you finish your bachelor and you just get your ASCA and you do your placement, but also as you go forward and you get your master's, you do your ASCA too, and you might be trying to get it working in a semi-professional environment or professional environment, doing rehab. So I feel like it was a very good checklist for me to just have. It's like, I feel like I'm always going to carry it around now.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome, mate. Yeah, glad it provided some value for you. And yeah, I think for those listening in that want to get a bit of a leapfrog and get a bit of understanding of where they sit amongst the competition, make sure to download that link. I'll put in the show notes of this episode so you can go about your craft maybe a little bit more like Mooksy and get some momentum in your career. Let's talk about the future, mate. Over the next 6 months, where do you want to be? What's one area that you really want to maximize that perhaps we can talk about a bit today?
Yeah, I guess like going 6 months forward, yeah, me doing all these things in my last year, sort of me thinking, yeah, I want to set myself up to get a full-time role, at least a part-time role in a professional environment. That's the good thing, I guess, where I built up a bit of experience in different array of sports. I'm really open to a sport that I'm able to grab upon an opportunity. Especially, I think your first role is going to be a lot of learning. You're going to still make a lot of mistakes. So I'm really, from talking to people who have also already graduated, that's a lot of the struggle. What I think people find with getting their first full-time or even part-time role, but just it being in a professional environment. So I guess, yeah, that's one of the biggest goals that I'm looking forward to, as well as, even though, I have the career goal is there of getting that, I also think about like my knowledge as an SNC or my knowledge as a sports scientist. What do I think about that? It's not just what I learn about at uni. What do I read from other coursework? What do I see from research? Just no, self-educating myself as being, I know the science behind it. I know why we're doing it, all of that as well. I feel like, yeah, those are the two goals that I look forward to. Like, yeah, I'm capable as a sports scientist or capable as a strength and conditioning coach to be able to go and do an own program or suggest an athlete to do this and that and why and explain the reasoning, justifying, and all of that sort of stuff. So I guess yeah, that's probably one of my two goals looking at to the end of the year. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
guess one of the main challenges to that, I guess it's like especially looking at getting knowledge and stuff. It's there's so much things out there. There's so many things out there. Especially if you go on LinkedIn, you can find a different post. If you go on Google Scholar, you'll find heaps of other things. If you go to Uniwork, you have heaps of other things. If you do your ASCA, you find heaps of other things as well. So it's sort of like you shouldn't be overdrawn by information as well. You should sort of pick. I feel like I've got to find a way to sort of fine tune and not waste my time in things where I don't need to be wasting it.
Yeah. Probably more than ever, we need a really strong filter, a bullshit detector on what's relevant and perhaps what's not going to be the most effective method. Which you've got great people around you, mate. So that's where you're leaning on your mentors. And I know you ask lots of questions can help with that. And then over time, you'll be able to come up with those methods yourself and refine your own philosophy, I guess, as you go in what's relevant and what's not. But let's dive into that full-time role. I think that will be one that many listeners that will resonate with them. The same goal, that full-time role and I think it's a great goal to have. Like after your bachelor's degree, you're certainly qualified to have it. So then the next layer is where do you stack up against the competition in terms of your experience and your competency, and that's where what you're doing this year is setting yourself up for success. At the end of the day, I think you do want to aim for full time, and whether you land on a part-time gig due to what's out there in the market when you're looking around that October, November stage, and what's best for you, because there could be a full-time job maybe that's in the private sector, but then you'll actually get a part-time role at pro sport level. And then you've got a decision to make. Do I want a full-time role in the private sector, or do I want to stay in pro sport with the internship at the Cats finishing up? I want to keep my finger in the pulse. I've got part-time experience and perhaps I'm just going to build my own business or work in the private sector as a sports scientist, S&C, like you're doing with Athletes Authority, and make the rest of the income that way. So let's go with that full-time role. I think, like I mentioned, you're qualified for it. So by the end of the year, if all things go well and you keep getting good grades, mate, you'll be qualified with your Bachelor of Sports Science degree. So that's a tick. So that's obviously a must. No pro sport club's going to have anyone that doesn't have that as a minimum. So that allows you to apply for the roles. Then to make the interview stage, typically you'll probably need your networks. So that's where your Ben Sepearl, Daniel Jones, Scott Murphy will be really helpful, because they'll find out about opportunities perhaps before they even make it to market. So for those listening in that aren't interning or they haven't built up the strong network base that you have and mentors that you have, already they're at a disadvantage because you're going to find out about roles before they even go to the market. So that's a big one. So making sure you reach out to those guys later in the year, and when the internship finishes, obviously thanking them for all the time and opportunity that you had at the role, but also that you're eager, if you haven't already, that you're wanting to land a full-time role. And if they hear of any opportunities, make sure to let you know. And then the next benefit that networks can also have, and this is something that I'll be able to help you with as well, is that to actually, if with all your networks, if there's a full-time opportunity and one of your networks happens to have a relationship with someone on the interview panel, to get that network to actually contact that person. So typically be able to see on the application process who's the email going to, or who's conducting the interview process. And that would be a really important process to go through to be able to put your resume ahead of the rest of the pack, because you're going to be front of mind when someone that they know in the industry is calling them and vouching for you. So that's a big one and a really effective one. Often you can be qualified for a role, but if there's hundreds of people going for it and you don't quite stand out due to experience, then you potentially don't even get looked at and don't make the interview stage. So then from there, like that experience, I think it was with the soccer club we were talking about, you're presenting, was that right?
Yeah.
that's where that experience, I think, will be really good, because you've had experience presenting was there a couple of people that you were presenting to that?
Yeah,
Talk
I
us
think there
through
was
that
like,
presentation.
but yeah, I think I didn't expect there to be anyone apart from the president when I walked in. Then I saw a table and five people sitting there. So it was
There you
like the
go.
women's head coach, and you had the managers, and you had one of the club secretaries as well. So it was like, oh, it was good that I printed it out and I had five copies of it. It was exactly five. So I was
Yep.
able to talk them through the stage. And it was also like you have to be able to present the sports science information in a layman's point of view as well, so that everyone can understand, but
Mhm.
also not to miss out on the key data points as well. So I guess yeah, that was I don't think I did it really well in some sense, but I feel like yeah, it just got me like what it feels like to do something like that, because I didn't expect myself to be doing it at such a young stage.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Oh, well, it was effective. You got
Yeah,
the role,
yeah,
got the opportunity, and you got a budget to invest in some GPS units as well on top of that.
yeah,
So they must have liked what you said. And I think it's a good point. Like you'll have, there'll be, all interviews will be a bit different. There'll be some that go pretty. Sounds like the internship one with Geelong Cats was sort of relatively straightforward. There was no curveballs, and you sort of knew what you're getting into, and that's the way it unfolded. Then there'll be others where they'll really test you and try and test you under pressure. And then there'll be unexpected ones as well, where perhaps you think that you're not presenting, but then they ask, "Oh, do you have a presentation together?" And hopefully you do in those
yeah,
situations. So you're always prepared. You want to over prepare, I think, and that will allow you then to pivot and ultimately stand out from those that aren't prepared. But yeah, I think that would be a great experience. There's always that feeling of, oh, you could have done better, I think. Certainly every time I've been in that situation, you always have that feeling. But ultimately, if you got that experience, which I think is really, really important, and usually, more often than not, rather than just maybe presenting to our parents or presenting to a good friend or perhaps to a colleague, there's no better experience than actually presenting to someone where there's something on the line like that. So it was great that you got experience before you go to market at the end of the year, because you've now got that bit of a confidence boost, a good reference point, and also a good process to go through on. Like you said, I think people do get caught up in over presenting and trying to get a little bit overcomplicated with terminology, and they get caught up in that. At the end of the day, there's not all high performance managers or all sports science people in front of you. There might be someone from HR, there could be a general manager, there could be a coach, and they're not going to be interested in all the nitty gritty sports science terminology and jargon. They just want to know how you sort of conduct yourself, how you present, and ultimately, is this going to be effective with the athletes? So I think if you can talk to who's in front of you and adapt on the fly to be able to get your message across, that's a big win, a big rock for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, so you're in a good position, mate, ultimately, so which is a really
yeah,
good place to be. I think you certainly don't need more things on your plate. I think it's maximizing all the current roles that you do have,
yeah,
because you're getting all the experiences that DJ had mentioned earlier in terms of sprinting mechanics, sports science, applying that to game day with your game day report. You're getting rehab experience. Like you said, not all athletes at community level can afford to see the physio all the time. So you're their guy for that now. So you're getting some bits and pieces, and obviously sticking your lane, like you said. There's some things that you won't be able to diagnose the grade of a hamstring strain, of course. But if you can help them with part of the process in terms of their rehab and their injury, and when they are working with the physio, being able to collaborate with that physio and work closely with that medical team, is great experience from obviously a recon rehab sort of experience. And then you're getting some big group management as well, obviously managing warm-ups and things with Doncaster and the like. So I think there's heaps there you can reference, and storytelling is really, really important in your presentation. When you're being interviewed, people love to hear about experience and real life scenarios, and you're going to have already, you've shared some of them with us today in this podcast. It's almost like a mini interview in its sense.
thanks, yeah,
But there'll be many more there where it might be an example of, if a head coach might be on the interview panel, or a general manager or someone outside of our field, and they'll be asking about how you help a team's performance. And that's where you can talk about the ACL risk of injuries and ankle injuries and player availability and how much you value player availability and the impact you've had, and being able to put in a program to improve their conditioning, their change of action efficiency, and strengthening their ligaments and muscles, and talk to that program. And bang, that straight away there, that is far more interesting than a research paper that you've read.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I think, get a lot of confidence in the work that you're doing, get a lot of confidence into the relationships and networks that you've built up this year. They're going to pay dividends later in the year. And ultimately, it's just putting your best foot forward, and then just seeing what opportunities arise. Because ultimately, the thing that sometimes we don't think about when we're in these positions is to, and I think we talked about this with the Geelong Cats, like if you were to get a role at the Geelong Cats at the end of your internship, that would mean that DJ, Scott Murphy, one of those guys is moving on, because there's only four roles in the program. And then if they're all committed to a contract and they're staying, then there just simply is no opportunity. So that can go for, that's why there's a little bit of just maximizing every year that you can. So then when the right role pops up for you, you've done everything that you can and you're ready to really make a big impact in that role for that organization. So I think there's not much more that you can really do other than just continue to do what you are doing, mate, which is a good place to be. And just continue to maximize every day. I know at times there'll be days where you'll be lacking a bit of energy, lacking a bit of motivation because you're doing a lot. But the amount of growth, if you reflect at the end of the year that you've had this year, compared to where you are, both from a practical sense as well as from a knowledge-based sense, from the start to the end of the year, is something really to be proud of. So just stick at it and trust the process, mate. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it all lands. You mentioned roadblocks in terms of knowledge. I think that is a tricky one in today's environment. The blessing of it is we have access to heaps of knowledge and there's information everywhere, but it is the challenge, and one that resonates with me as well. Like I'm constantly filtering on, which way do you go when you read a new research article, or you might speak to a colleague on a certain different method. But one area that's helped me with that, I guess, is just letting it settle and not actioning straight away, letting it settle. And perhaps when you are looking for information, look at a lens on what's an area of growth, either from your own skill set that you're looking to improve. So it might be, plyometric drills and from low amplitude to high amplitude type of, and you're building out your own plyometric database. Like, okay, I want a framework for, for developing a lower limb plyometric progression system. And then you go off and research and you're looking for areas like that. And then you're building out a plyometric program. So it's really clear. And it's something that you can action, perhaps you're working with a high range of volume of athletes. Someone does their hamstring strain. So bang, that would be a great thing to go research and ask your mentors around hamstring return to play. And that way you're actually learning on things that you can action and practice. So you're getting, you're upgrading your knowledge. You're able to really clearly filter what's relevant and what's something that's applicable to your context. Not all athletes can have GPS. So, okay, how can I adapt that? I'm going to have to use my stopwatch for my flying sprints. And I'm going to have to communicate really clearly with the athlete on, what 70% feels like, what 80% feels like for their speed and things like that. And I think that's one thing that's helped me over the time. And I'm sure I got that advice from a mentor in the past on, rather than getting overwhelmed with all the information out there and having that sort of widespread knowledge, actually look at all the experiences that you're getting. There's going to be problems popping up every day. So with those problems that pop up, you can then dive into some research, whether it be speaking to a colleague around that problem that you've got, or doing a bit of research and reading in that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So in terms of your current roles, how will that sort of fill out for the rest of the year? You've got the internship, Cats, obviously Doncaster, the women's soccer club, and then your cricket clubs. It's in pre-season. So talk us through those. When will they sort of come to fruition?
Yeah, so I guess footy we in pretty much the last like of footy season. I guess like we've got a month and maybe a bit to go. So Geelong, my time at Geelong will come to an end as the season finishes.
Yep.
And same with Doncaster as well. As the season finishes, that local footy finishes before, obviously, that probably around 20th, 25th of August as well. And the same thing with soccer. All these winter sports, they sort of finish around that August mark. So I should be finishing up with commitments there. And that's why I had this wanted to go for this athletes authority role to sort of keep me filled during my last 2 months at uni, still have stuff going when I'm graduating and focusing on my exams in the last bit. But
Yep.
that's where I'm like looking forward to like, yeah, what's next? What's a role that I can do? What's a role that I can learn a lot from? There's some things that I've already done. You don't want to go and do the same things again. You want to grow and learn from your next step. So that's that, as well as cricket. I guess that's sort of my thing where I can play because I'm playing as well. I can always just coach on the side as well. And I think another good thing that I was thinking about the other day was like because we were doing the junior committee meetings as part of the club program, and I was thinking like as a high performance manager, someone who manages a lot of different people, different individuals, strength and conditioning coaches, physios, has to talk to the coach. And I saw that, doing that role would also sort of set me up in picking up those skills of managing different sectors of the club, not just talking to the president, talking to kids, talking to parents, talking to athletes, all a mix of that. And I guess that's really why I also wanted to keep a bit of a coaching role as well, apart from just doing the strength and conditioning, because I guess your leadership, management, all of those things also just build up into your skill set as well from that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something that that's something that I wish I did early on. Is coaching from a technical, tactical side, not just the physical side, because
Yeah.
you will have empathy with head coaches because you've been through that. So I think your ability to build um, a working relationship with coaches because of that experience will definitely put you in good stead from that experience that you've built up. Um, Final tip from me, mate, is the outreach as well. So typically in the AFL world, most of the roles pop up around October, November. So it's a good time to sort of plant the seed around August, September, because the clubs, obviously 8 of the clubs are going to finish in September.
Yeah.
And usually everyone does their end of year review and they're planning contracts for next year around 2 weeks post their season. So if you're finishing in September, around that 2 weeks post, middle of September, is when you do a lot of that review and exit meetings with the players. And then people go into off-season mode. So it's a good time around August to just get a message out there to all different clubs, as many as you can, whether it be an email, a LinkedIn direct message, and just a bit of an intro, and if there's any roles that are out there, how you'd love to put your hand up for that role, and maybe have some strengths or some experiences that you've had. If any of your networks can help you with that connection with that football club as well, that can help out, and you can reference that person that you've worked with this year, and that can help just power a little bit more weight and also build that connection, so that club can speak to that person, find out a little bit more information about yourself. But that's a really important thing in terms of just getting your name out there as well. Obviously, you might send out 100 of them and you might only hear back from 3 of them.
Always.
But
Yeah.
it's still just part of the industry, I guess, and just part of the fun of landing that first full-time contract. But that would definitely be something that I would look to do as we get close to the end of the year, because the window of roles is very small, in the industry. It's like the merry-go-round. As soon as one person leaves from one club, then that means there's an opening, and tend to people move around in different positions. So that's the best time to sort of just get your name out there and ask around, so you can find out. These days, most clubs will, I think you pretty much have to, due to HR reasons, publish a job. But if you can find out about that job earlier and just start preparing for it, the sooner the better for that. So, but yeah, we'll stay in contact, mate. Anyway, and we'll keep the phone calls happening, and
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoy the chats that we have behind the scenes as well, and just discussions around how to maximize this year for you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds. No doubt that the organization that you will land at the end of the year, whether it be full-time or part-time, we'll be lucky to have you, mate. So thank you for all the work that you've done this year, and being part of the academy. For anyone that's got any follow-up questions or perhaps wants to connect with you, mate, is there a best place to get in contact, whether it be LinkedIn, email? What's the best place?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm really pretty much active, like more than like I use my Instagram almost like my LinkedIn. I guess I'm pretty
Okay,
active
cool.
there, so you can get me there. You
Yep.
can send me a message. I also pretty in touch with my emails. You can send me an email as well as give me a phone call, even, a message,
Yep.
pretty much anything. Yeah, always happy to reach out. Always happy to make new connections.
Awesome. Awesome, Mooksy. Well, yeah, thanks again, mate, for jumping on and sharing with us your journey this year. And yeah, looking forward to many more chats to come, mate. And yeah, let's keep the year rolling.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it, Jack.
Thanks, those, for everyone that's tuned in. If you've got any follow-up questions for Mooksy, make sure to check out the show notes. I'll add in his LinkedIn profile, connect with him there, and as well as his email address. And yeah, if you're looking for a gun-ho S&C sports scientist, he's your man. So make sure to reach out if there's any job opportunities where you're looking for someone to help your organization. He's definitely your man. So I couldn't vouch for him any higher. So well done, mate, on the great year so far. And thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Our next live episode will be released via our email list very shortly. So make sure to stay tuned there, and I look forward to seeing you on our next live show.